In this video, we want to look at an R script that's going to read some data, which is Hubble's data, off of the CSV that is posted on a website. And we've done this before, except the first time I did Hubble, I just had vectors and created a data frame out of it. This time I'm going to read the data and the reading will create a data frame. And then one of the other big main difference is that if you just do a simple LM linear model in R, it gives you a slope and an intercept, a constant. And for this data, I'm deciding that I don't want an intercept. So I wanted to show how to set the intercept to 0. So let's get started. So I'm going to read in the data using read.csv. Let's have the data's up here on the internet, so I'm reading it straight off of the internet, but I did download a version so you can see what it looks like, and there it is. So it's going to have distances and velocities, and it has some units, and I tried to sort of preserve these names to some extent, but I ended up not using that. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So here is just reading in the data. Sorry, I wanted to run. And now I have 24 observations of the two variables, and it creates these names. So in the sort of name of the columns, it doesn't like spaces, neither do I. It doesn't like parentheses, it doesn't like the slashes. And so it has replaced everything with periods. So the period was an acceptable character, and so it made that replacement. And I'm going to, down here on line 13, simplify the names. So give it my own sort of more simplified names and not have units and such, just have distance and velocity. But before that, I was making some attempt to save the column names. So I can take my data frame Hubble and I can get the column names from it. So this, and then that has components. And so the first one was the distance and the second one was the velocity. And then I was trying to get rid of the dots, and that's this G sub, get rid of the dots and put sort of spaces back in. And that G sub is a substitution, it's a string substitution, but it often works with regular expressions. So a period is a special character in regular expressions, sort of standing in for anything. So that's a problem. The period is not a period. And so that's why the // And I found it a little weird that it was / and not just a single slash, but okay. So, and I found that here. So giving credit where it's due, in the end, I didn't use it, but it might be useful for somebody else. Why didn't I use it? So before I change these names, I tried to make a variable corresponding to the X label and the Y label, and get rid of the periods and put spaces back in. But I lost. I could live with the no parentheses, but I lost the slash. And I was just trying to save myself, doing a hell of a lot of work to try to save myself, half a minute of typing, which was ridiculous. So, but it may be useful for somebody to know how to get the names of the columns and do at least some substituting. Didn't do me any good because I lost a slash and I couldn't live with losing the slash. That would be the wrong unit. Kilometer seconds is different than kilometers per second. Okay. Here I am renaming the field, so it's what I do below when I work with the fields is sort of simpler. And so this was just renaming the fields. So C is a vector, and I'm using this vector with two strings, distance and velocity, to rename the column names. So we can see now the data has simpler column names, distance and velocity. Now let's make a plot. You can say when you're working with the plot method, you can say, I want X comma Y, or I can say I want Y tilde X. So here I'm working with the tilde approach. So I want the Y first, and I want the velocity to be on the Y-axis and the distance to be on the X-axis. So again, if I'm going to use the tilde notation, the Y comes first. If I'm using a comma notation, the X comes first. And I'm going to have the main title of my plot be Hubble's original data. And then here's my X label and my Y label, distance and velocity, kilometers per second. And this is what I was trying to play with up above, but again, I lost my slash in the kilometers per second and I couldn't live with it. But here is plotting. So here's the plot. Now I want the linear model, and here's different from what I've done before. I wanted no intercept. If I were in Excel, I would choose the option where I'm setting the intercept to be 0. And so if I just had linear model LM and this, that's what I would normally do, and that would give me a simple linear model with this is the Y, this is the variable, and it would give me an intercept. It would assume I wanted an intercept, and that would also affect the other quantity, the slope. But we've added the word formula, and we've explicitly put in a plus 0, and so that is forcing the intercept to be 0. So the word formula is new and the plus 0 is new. And then I'm adding a summary of this so that I will get the results of this linear regression displayed down in the console. So there it is down in the console. Here's my summary. And here are there's a thing called the coefficients of the linear model. And in this case, there's only really one coefficient, which will be the slope. But I always like to do the summary because then when I'm extracting the coefficients, this is what I will have to match. This is sort of an associative array. Or a key value pair. The index is a named index, and so I need to know what it was named, and it's Hubble $distance. Okay, so I want to, when I have just a simple linear model, then it's easy for me to add the line to the fit. Okay, now it goes a little bit before I didn't specify the domain or range, so it goes a little bit before 0 and also a little bit under 0. So it looks like I'm not. The origin is just, you have to pay attention. I sort of set the origin to 0, but you have to pay attention to where the origin is, where this dash and this dash, those tick marks where they would meet, would be the origin, and it does seem to then to go through the origin. So just don't allow yourself to be fooled. Okay, so, and you can control for sure the Y range. Here I'm extracting the slope, so it was the slope of the fit belongs to my model, Hub model. It is one of the coefficients, and then it's the coefficient, in this case the only coefficient, but it's named Hubble $distance. So that's extracting for me the slope. Now over here, it's displayed as just for 424, but it's actually like many more decimal places than that. Okay, so now I like to display my fit equation so that, the person looking at my graph knows my result. And so I am constructing the graph here. I'm just constructing the equation. And so I said y equals, and then I took my slope from the fit, but then I've rounded it to 2 decimal places. If I didn't round it, it would give me however many, many 8 decimal places or something, way more than I wanted. I used y and x, but I'm just typing it myself, so I could have said, instead of y, I could have said that it was the velocity, or I could have used v or something. I could have written the word velocity, I could have used v here for the x, I could have said distance. I just went with simple y and x, but that, of course, doesn't have to be. And here's what that created. And now I want to add that to the actual plot. And that's what this text method does. And right now, this text method has 3 arguments. And the first one is an x. So where do I want in the center of this thing? The center of this displayed equation, I want to be an x of 0.4 and a y of about 800. So about 0.4 and 800. So I want my equation to be centered about here. And then what do I want centered? That fit equation that I created. And there it is. Okay. So that is what I wanted to show. My main objective was the linear model with 0 intercept. But I also read the data off the internet. I played around with working with the labels, but that really didn't work for me in this case, but I kept it in case it's of use to somebody else. Here was the main thing I wanted to show, this linear model with the explicit intercept being set to 0. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for your attention.